What happens when you finally stop chasing a narcissist? You stop texting first. You stop asking where they are. You stop trying to fix every argument. You stop checking whether they've seen your message. You stop wondering why they're pulling away. And for the first time, you're no longer running after someone who keeps making you question where you stand. That's when the dynamic can change. They may notice. They may become curious. They may suddenly reach out. They may even try to pull you back into the same cycle. But here's the question you really need to ask. If someone only becomes interested when you stop chasing them, what does that tell you about the relationship? Because stopping the chase isn't about playing a game. It's not about making someone jealous. And it's not a secret trick for making a narcissist come running back. It's about stepping out of a pattern where you're constantly pursuing someone for attention, reassurance, affection, or answers. So today, we're going to look at what may happen when you stop chasing someone with strong, narcissistic traits, and why their reaction can reveal more than their words ever could. The first thing that may happen is surprisingly simple. They notice that you're no longer pursuing them. Maybe you were always the one sending the first message. You checked in. You asked how their day was. You tried to keep the conversation alive. When they became distant, you tried harder. When they became cold, you became more affectionate. When they stopped responding, you wondered what you had done wrong. But now, you stop. No dramatic announcement. No angry message saying, "I'm done chasing you." You simply stop pursuing. And when a familiar pattern suddenly changes, the other person may notice. They may wonder, why haven't they texted? Why aren't they asking about me? Why aren't they trying to fix this? Are they finally moving on? The important thing is not that they notice. The important thing is why they respond to the change. When someone has become accustomed to your attention, your silence can create uncertainty. They may not know what you're thinking anymore. They may not know whether you're still emotionally available. And they may start wondering what changed. You might receive a simple message. "Hey, how are you? What are you doing?" Or perhaps something completely random. They may suddenly remember an old joke. They may send you a photo. They may respond to one of your stories. The message itself may seem harmless. And sometimes it is. But if the previous pattern involved them withdrawing whenever they wanted and expecting you to chase them back, their sudden interest may be an attempt to see whether that old dynamic is still available. That's why you shouldn't immediately interpret contact as proof of love. Contact tells you someone contacted you. It doesn't automatically tell you why. One of the biggest changes when you stop chasing is that the other person may no longer have the same certainty about your feelings. Before, they knew you would come back. They knew you would send another message. They knew you would apologize. They knew you would ask what was wrong. But now they aren't sure. So they may test the situation. They might send a casual message just to see how quickly you respond. They might mention something you both experienced. They might ask whether you're seeing someone. They might suddenly become curious about your plans. Or they might say something like, "I haven't heard from you lately." And you may feel tempted to explain everything. But you don't have to turn every interaction into a relationship negotiation. You can simply observe. Are they genuinely trying to build something healthier? Or are they simply checking whether they still have access to you? That distinction matters. Sometimes, when you stop chasing, the person appears to become more interested. They may text more often. They may compliment you. They may ask about your life. They may suddenly want to see you. And this can feel validating. You may think, finally, they're realizing my value. They're afraid of losing me. Maybe. But don't let the sudden increase in attention make you forget the previous pattern. Ask yourself, why did the interest increase only after I stopped pursuing? And more importantly, will it continue when I stop giving them what they want? Anyone can become attentive for a few days. The real test is consistency. Another possible reaction is jealousy. You may notice more posts, more pictures, more social activity. Maybe they're suddenly appearing happier than ever. Maybe they're interacting with someone new. And you immediately feel that familiar urge. Who is that? Are they dating? Are they trying to make me jealous? Maybe they are. Maybe they aren't. You don't actually know. And that's the trap. If you spend your day analyzing every post, you are still chasing, just digitally. You're no longer chasing them physically. You're chasing information. You're trying to figure out what they're doing, who they're with, and what every post means. That's still giving away your attention. So if you truly want to stop chasing, don't replace physical chasing with social media monitoring. You don't need to investigate a life you're trying to step away from. If attention doesn't return through kindness, sometimes conflict can become another way of getting a reaction. A provocative comment, a subtle insult, a comparison, a message designed to irritate you, something that makes you want to defend yourself. And suddenly, you're back in the cycle. You're explaining, you're arguing, you're proving your intentions, you're trying to make them understand. But here's something important. You don't have to respond to every emotional invitation. If someone says something simply to provoke a reaction, you don't have to accept the invitation. You can step away. You can end the conversation. You can set a boundary. And if the relationship has involved abuse, threats, intimidation, or unpredictable behavior, prioritize your safety rather than trying to prove a point. Stopping the chase should never become a dangerous confrontation. This is where things can become especially confusing. Imagine someone who was distant for weeks suddenly becomes affectionate. They say, "I miss you. I've been thinking about you. Nobody understands me like you do. You were always there for me." You feel hope. And before you know it, you're emotionally invested again. Then the pattern changes. They become distant. The communication slows down. The affection disappears. And you're back to wondering, what happened? This push and pull dynamic can be emotionally exhausting. And that's why you shouldn't judge change based on one emotional conversation. Look at the pattern over time. Temporary affection is not the same thing as consistent change. Not everyone responds to being ignored by becoming affectionate. Some people become angry. They may accuse you of changing. They may say you're acting differently. They may blame you for the distance. They may tell you that you don't care anymore. And that can make you feel guilty. You may start thinking, maybe I should explain myself. Maybe I was too harsh. Maybe I should reach out. But ask yourself something. Were you actually being cruel? Or were you simply no longer doing all the emotional work? There is a difference between abandoning someone and establishing boundaries. You can care about someone without constantly chasing them. You can love someone without accepting disrespect. And you can step back without becoming a bad person. And yes, sometimes they come back. Maybe after days, maybe after weeks, maybe after months. And the timing can feel almost unbelievable. You finally stop chasing, and suddenly they appear. That's why people often ask, do narcissists come back when you stop chasing? Sometimes people do come back, but don't turn that into a guaranteed formula. The important question isn't, will they come back? The important question is, if they come back, what are they bringing with them? Are they bringing accountability, respect, consistency, a willingness to communicate differently, a willingness to respect your boundaries? Or are they simply bringing the same behavior in a new package? Because someone returning isn't necessarily evidence of personal growth. One of the hardest things to accept is that you may never get the apology you wanted. You may never hear, "I understand what I did to you. I was wrong. I should have treated you differently. I take responsibility." And waiting for that apology can keep you emotionally attached. You keep checking. You keep hoping. You keep imagining the conversation. You think, once they admit what they did, I'll finally be able to move on. But your healing cannot depend entirely on another person's ability to understand your pain. Sometimes closure isn't something another person gives you. Sometimes closure comes from accepting what happened and deciding what you will no longer accept. This is the most important part. Don't stop chasing because you want them to chase you. Don't stop texting because you want to make them jealous. Don't stop checking their profile because you want them to notice your absence. Don't go silent as a strategy to control their emotions. Instead, stop chasing because you are tired of abandoning yourself in the process of trying to keep someone else. That's the difference. One is a game, the other is growth. When you stop chasing, your attention becomes available again. You can focus on your work, your family, your friendships, your goals, your health, your future. And slowly, the question changes. Instead of, how do I get them to choose me? You start asking, why was I working so hard to convince someone to choose me in the first place? That's a powerful shift. When you stop chasing, you may learn something important, not necessarily about what's inside their head, but about the relationship dynamic. If the relationship becomes peaceful when you establish boundaries, that's information. If someone respects your space, that's information. If they communicate openly, accept responsibility, and remain consistent, that's information. But if they only become interested when you withdraw, if they repeatedly disappear and return, if they punish you for setting boundaries, if they provoke you when you stop responding, if they demand access without offering respect, that's information too. You don't need to diagnose someone to recognize an unhealthy pattern. You don't need to prove that they're a narcissist. You can simply say, this relationship isn't healthy for me. And that can be enough. The real power isn't that someone might come running after you. The real power is that you stop running after someone who isn't meeting you halfway. Think about that. A healthy relationship shouldn't require one person to constantly pursue while the other constantly withdraws. You shouldn't have to earn basic communication. You shouldn't have to compete for affection. You shouldn't have to keep proving that you're worthy of being chosen. And you shouldn't have to destroy your peace just to maintain a relationship. Love should involve effort from both sides, communication from both sides, respect from both sides, and responsibility from both sides. So, how might a narcissist react when you stop chasing them? They may notice. They may become curious. They may test whether you still care. They may suddenly become more interested. They may try to make you jealous. They may provoke you. They may give you just enough attention to pull you back. They may become cold or angry. They may come back, or they may move on. But here's what matters most. Their reaction is not your goal. Your goal is to stop losing yourself trying to keep someone else. If they come back, look at their behavior. If they apologize, look for accountability. If they promise change, look for consistency. If they want another chance, ask whether the relationship can actually become healthier. And if nothing changes, you are allowed to walk away. You don't need to chase someone into loving you properly. You don't need to compete for someone's attention. And you don't need to convince someone of your worth. The moment you stop chasing isn't necessarily the moment they start chasing you. It's the moment you start choosing yourself. If this video helped you understand something you've experienced, subscribe to the channel for more videos about narcissistic relationships, emotional manipulation, boundaries, healing, and relationship psychology. And if you're following this series, watch the previous videos on what happens when you stop reacting to a narcissist and what narcissists may feel when you stop giving them attention. Because sometimes, the biggest change doesn't happen when they finally notice your absence. It happens when you finally stop abandoning yourself to keep them.